I stood in the middle of my mother-in-law's marble foyer, watching my sister-in-law Vanessa toss my carefully wrapped Christmas gift into the actual trash can. Not set it aside. Not place it with the other gifts. She literally walked across that pristine white living room, opened the stainless steel trash bin, and dropped it in with the wrapping paper and champagne corks. "Laura, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. "Next time maybe just bring wine? I mean, a thrift store bracelet." "Really?" The entire Bennett family laughed. Matt's brother Derek. His other brother Christopher. Their wives. Even the children, especially the children, because they'd been taught that people like me were lesser. Matt stood next to his mother's grand piano, holding a crystal tumbler of 18-year-old scotch, and he didn't say a word. He just looked at his phone. That bracelet had cost me $847. It was vintage Tiffany, and I'd saved for 3 months to buy it for Vanessa because she'd mentioned, once, in passing, that she loved Art Deco jewelry. The woman at the estate sale had authenticated it. I had papers. But they didn't know that. And in that moment, watching my husband refuse to meet my eyes, I realized something that made my hands go cold. They would never know that. Because to them, I would always be the broke girl from Idaho that Matt had inexplicably married 7 years ago. The one without a trust fund. The one whose parents owned a hardware store instead of a hedge fund. Vanessa's gift from her husband. A pair of diamond earrings, 4 carats each, presented in a Cartier box. She'd squealed and hugged him while everyone applauded. My gift from Matt. A KitchenAid mixer. In front of his entire family. "Because you love to bake," he'd said, smiling like he'd done something thoughtful. I didn't bake. I'd never baked. His first wife, the one they all still loved, the one who died in a car accident 5 years before he met me, she had baked. But to understand how I ended up here, standing in a $12 million Westchester estate watching my marriage disintegrate in real time, I need to go back. Back to where this nightmare actually started. For months earlier, Matt's uncle, Harrison Bennett, the family patriarch, had died at 93 years old. I'd met him exactly twice. Both times he'd been polite but distant, the way rich people are when they're tolerating someone they consider temporary. The funeral was a spectacle, over 300 people, a string quartet, catering from Manhattan. I wore my only black designer dress, the one I'd bought at a consignment shop and had tailored to fit perfectly. Harrison's will was read 2 weeks later in a mahogany-paneled conference room that smelled like leather and old money. The lawyer, a man named Gerald Hutchinson who wore a watch that probably cost more than my car, distributed envelopes to each family member with mechanical precision. Derek got the compound in the Hamptons. Christopher got the controlling shares in the family's commercial real estate company. Vanessa got $2.3 million in cash and jewelry. Even Matt's mother, Patricia, received an additional trust worth $8 million, despite already being worth more than I could comprehend. Matt got Harrison's entire stock portfolio, $4.7 million in blue-chip investments. I got a small wooden box. The lawyer slid it across the table to me with no explanation. It was maybe 6 inches long, 4 inches wide. Plain maple wood with a simple brass clasp. Every eye in that room turned to me. "What's this?" I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Gerald consulted his notes. Mr. Bennett's instructions were specific. "This box and its contents are bequeathed to Laura Bennett, née Cooper, with his compliments and gratitude for her kindness." Kindness. I'd barely spoken to the man. I opened the box. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was a tarnished silver pocket watch and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. The watch was old, clearly an antique, but nothing compared to the Patek Philippe watches the Bennett men wore. The note read, "For Laura. Time reveals all truths. Use this wisely. H.B." The room was silent for exactly 3 seconds before Vanessa started laughing. "A pocket watch." She turned to her husband. "Harrison left her a pocket watch while you got the Hamptons house." Derek was grinning. Maybe he thought she needed help telling time. "You know, so she's not late to her shifts at, where do you work again, Laura? That little non-profit." "I'm a grant writer for a children's literacy foundation," I said quietly. Right. Very noble." Christopher was smirking now too. Well, at least you got something. That's nice of Uncle Harrison. Matt took the box from my hands, glanced at the watch, and closed it. It's the thought that counts, right? He kissed my forehead, and I felt the dismissal in it. The let's not make a scene of it all. Patricia, Matt's mother, spoke from the head of the table, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. Harrison was 93 and on a great deal of medication toward the end. I'm sure he meant well, but perhaps his judgment was compromised. Meaning, the old man was senile and you got a pity prize. I took the box back and held it in my lap for the rest of the meeting. When we got home to our brownstone in Brooklyn, the one Matt had bought before we met, the one that was still only in his name, I put the box on my dresser and didn't look at it again. That was September. By December, I'd almost forgotten about it entirely. I was too busy trying to figure out why my marriage felt like it was dying by degrees. Why Matt worked later and later. Why he'd started going to the gym at 5 a.m. and coming home smelling like expensive soap I didn't recognize. Why his family had started treating me with even more contempt than usual, like they knew something I didn't. The Christmas party at Patricia's estate was mandatory. The Bennetts always gathered there, all of them, every year, for a formal evening that was more performance than celebration. This year there were 37 people, siblings, spouses, children, cousins, plus Patricia's society friends who wore their wealth like armor. I'd bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, spending money I'd saved from my salary. A first edition book for Derek, who collected them. A cashmere scarf for Christopher's wife. Handmade ornaments for the children. And that bracelet for Vanessa, because despite her cruelty, I kept trying. I kept thinking if I could just prove I belonged, they'd accept me. The bracelet in the trash proved how stupid I'd been. Now, before I tell you what happened next, before I reveal how that worthless pocket watch became the key to everything, I need to hear from you. Have you ever been in a room full of people who made you feel invisible? Have you ever tried so hard to be accepted that you lost yourself? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, your city, your state, wherever you are in the world. Because what I'm about to share with you, this story of how I went from being the family joke to the one holding all the cards, it matters. Your story matters too, and I need you to know you're not alone in feeling small. So hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel, because I promise you, what comes next will make you believe in justice again. And maybe, just maybe, it'll remind you that the people who underestimate you are the ones who should be afraid. Okay. Back to that night. After the trashcan incident, I excused myself to the bathroom. Not Patricia's main powder room, that was too close to the party, but the one upstairs, past the guest bedrooms, where I could lock the door and breathe without someone watching. I sat on the edge of the marble bathtub and cried. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears that ruined my makeup. I pulled out my phone to text my best friend Casey, but I had no service. Patricia's house was a dead zone unless you were on her private Wi-Fi, and she'd never given me the password. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes. 20. Long enough that when I finally composed myself and came back downstairs, dinner was being served. Matt found me in the hallway. Where were you? Bathroom. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt. Annoyance. I couldn't tell anymore. Listen, about the mixer. It's fine. It's not fine. You're upset. I'm fine, Matt. I wasn't fine. I was drowning. But I'd learned that admitting you're drowning to people who won't throw you a rope is pointless. Dinner was rack of lamb and roasted vegetables, served on china that had been in the Bennett family for 4 generations. I was seated between Christopher's wife Morgan and a cousin I'd never met. Matt was at the other end of the table, next to his mother. The conversation flowed around me, ski trips to Aspen, summer plans in Martha's Vineyard, someone's daughter getting into Princeton. I cut my lamb into tiny pieces and moved them around my plate. Halfway through the meal, Vanessa cleared her throat. So, Laura, are you still doing that little writing thing? All eyes turned to me. I'm still a grant writer, yes. And how much does that pay? If you don't mind me asking. I minded. $52,000 a year. You could feel the pity in the room. Morgan actually winced. That's wonderful that you're so passionate about it, Patricia said, her tone suggesting it was anything but wonderful. Though I must say, when Matthew married you, I'd hoped you might consider something more substantial. Jennifer, Matt's first wife, she was in investment banking before she passed. Very impressive woman. There it was. Jennifer. They brought her up constantly, always phrased as casual reminiscence but designed to remind me I was the replacement model. The inferior one. Matt said nothing. He cut his lamb and chewed in silence. Derek jumped in. At least Laura got that sweet inheritance from Uncle Harrison, right? That pocket watch must be worth at least, what, $50? Laughter rippled down the table. Actually, I said, surprising myself, I haven't had it appraised. Maybe it's worth more than you think. Doubtful, Christopher said. Uncle Harrison's real valuables were catalogued by the estate. If that watch was worth anything, it would have gone to auction with the rest. Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. You know what I think? I think Harrison felt sorry for you. Poor little Laura, married into money but still broke, still shopping at TJ Maxx, still clipping coupons. He probably thought, let me give her something so she feels included. The table went quiet. Even for the Bennetts, that was cruel. I looked at Matt. Looked right at him, willing him to defend me. To say something. Anything. He took a sip of wine. Vanessa, that's enough. That's enough. Not don't talk to my wife that way. Not apologize. Just that's enough. Like she was a child who'd played a game too roughly. I set down my fork. Excuse me. I walked out of that dining room, through the foyer, and out the front door into the December cold. I didn't have my coat. I didn't care. I walked down the circular driveway, past the fountain that probably cost more than my childhood home, and stood under a streetlight trying to remember how to breathe. My phone buzzed. Casey, how's the party from hell? Worse than last year, I typed back. I think my marriage is over. The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Come stay with me. Tonight. Right now. I stared at those words. Casey lived in a studio apartment in Queens. She was a social worker, barely scraping by, but she'd give me her only pillow and sleep on the floor without hesitation. She'd been telling me for 2 years that Matt was wrong for me, that his family would never accept me, that I deserved better. I'd defended him every time. The front door opened behind me. Matt's footsteps on the stone driveway. Laura. I didn't turn around. You're being dramatic. That made me turn around. Dramatic. Vanessa was drunk. She didn't mean it. She meant every word. And you let her say it. What was I supposed to do? Cause a scene at Christmas dinner? You were supposed to be my husband. My voice cracked. You were supposed to defend me. You've been letting them humiliate me for 7 years, and I'm tired, Matt. I'm so tired. He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture he did when he was frustrated. You're too sensitive. This is just how my family is. If you can't handle some teasing. Teasing. Your sister threw my gift in the trash. That bracelet was from a thrift store, Laura. You can't give people thrift store jewelry and expect them to. It was Tiffany. It was worth $847. I saved for 3 months. He blinked. What? I'm not poor, Matt. I'm not stupid. I know what quality is. But it doesn't matter if I give them Tiffany or Taco Bell, because they'll never see me as anything but the charity case you married. He stepped closer, and I could smell the wine on his breath. My family has been very generous to you. Your family has tolerated me. There's a difference. You're being ungrateful. Something inside me snapped. Then maybe I should go be grateful somewhere else. I started walking. Down the driveway, toward the street, with no coat and no plan, just the overwhelming need to escape. Laura. Jesus Christ, Laura, get back here. I kept walking. He caught up to me at the end of the driveway, grabbed my arm. Not hard, but firm. You're not leaving. You're going to come back inside, apologize for making a scene, and we're going to finish dinner like adults. I stared at him. At this man I'd loved, this man I'd married in a courthouse because his mother had refused to pay for a wedding unless I signed a prenup that would leave me with nothing. At this man who'd promised to love and protect me and who was now asking me to apologize for being humiliated. No. I'm going home. To Brooklyn. I'll call an Uber. With what money? You spent $847 on a bracelet, remember? It was a low blow, and he knew it. I had $43 in my checking account until my next paycheck. But I pulled out my phone anyway. Fine. I'll pay for the Uber. But we're talking about this tomorrow. And Laura. He leaned close. If you embarrass me in front of my family, there will be consequences. He went back inside. I stood there shaking, from cold, from anger, from fear, until a black Toyota pulled up 23 minutes later. The driver was a woman in her 60s named Dora who took one look at my face and turned up the heat without a word. I cried the entire way home. When I got to the brownstone, I went straight to our bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe Cases. Maybe a hotel. Maybe Idaho, back to my parents, back to being Laura Cooper instead of Laura Bennett. I was folding jeans when I saw it, the wooden box on my dresser. Harrison's pocket watch. I hadn't thought about it in months. I opened the box, took out the watch, studied it under the lamp. It was tarnished, scratched, clearly old. The face was yellowed, the Roman numerals faded. On the back was an engraving, HRB 1955. Harrison Reginald Bennett. The year he'd turned 25, probably. A gift to himself, or from his father. A trinket. A relic. Time reveals all truths. What truths? What was I missing? I turned the watch over again, and that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before, a tiny seam along the edge of the case. Not a crack. A separation. Like the back could open. I used my fingernail to pry it, and the back popped off easily. Inside was a folded piece of paper, tissue-thin, yellowed with age. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. It was a deed. A property deed. For a building in Manhattan, on the Upper West Side. 247, West 78th Street. Dated 1978. Signed over to Harrison Bennett. And underneath, in Harrison's shaky handwriting, still mine. Never sold. They don't know. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the address. 247, West 78th Street was a 6-story apartment building, red brick, pre-war construction. I switched to Google Maps, Street View. It was gorgeous. Well maintained. The ground floor had a French restaurant with white tablecloths visible through the windows. My heart was pounding. I searched property records. It took me 40 minutes, 3 different websites, and a $29.99 subscription to a real estate database, but I found it. 247, West 78th Street was owned by a holding company, Bennett Properties LLC. The LLC had been created in 1978 by Harrison Bennett. The registered agent was a law firm in Midtown, Hutchinson and Associates. Gerald Hutchinson, the lawyer who'd read the will. The building was valued at $18.3 million. And according to the deed in my hands, it belonged to me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that number until my vision blurred. $18 million. 18 million. The Bennetts had no idea. When they'd catalogued Harrison's assets, they'd missed this. Somehow, this building had stayed off the books, hidden in an LLC that no one had thought to investigate. Maybe Harrison had set it up that way intentionally. Maybe he'd been waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Or maybe he'd been waiting for the right person. For Laura. Time reveals all truths. Use this wisely. I looked at the note again. They don't know. Harrison had left me a bomb. And he'd trusted me to decide when to detonate it. I called Gerald Hutchinson's office. It was 9:47 p.m. on Christmas night, so I got voicemail. This is Laura Bennett. I need to speak with you about Harrison Bennett's estate. Specifically about 247, West 78th Street. Please call me back as soon as possible. It's urgent. Then I sat on my bed, holding that pocket watch, and I started to laugh. Not happy laughter. Hysterical laughter. The kind that comes when the world flips upside down and you realize the people who thought you were worthless just lost everything. Matt came home at 11:15 p.m. I heard the front door, his footsteps on the stairs. He stopped in the bedroom doorway. You're still up? Couldn't sleep. We need to talk about tonight. Okay. He sat on the edge of the bed, keeping distance between us. You can't just walk out of family events, Laura. It's disrespectful. I said nothing. My mother is very upset. Vanessa feels terrible. I'm sure she does. I need you to call them tomorrow and apologize. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At this man who'd chosen his family over me every single time. This man who'd let them throw my gift in the trash, mock my job, compare me to his dead wife. No. His jaw tightened. Excuse me. I'm not apologizing. Laura. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air between us. Matt laughed. Actually laughed. You want a divorce? Over what? Christmas dinner. Over 7 years of being treated like I'm not good enough. Over you never defending me. Over everything. Fine. He stood up. Fine. You want a divorce? We'll get a divorce. But remember that prenup you signed? You get nothing. This house. Mine. My inheritance from Uncle Harrison. Mine. You'll walk away with whatever you came in with, which, if I remember correctly, was about $12,000 in student loan debt and a Honda Civic. He was right. The prenup was ironclad. I'd signed it because I'd been young and in love and stupid, and Matt's lawyer had assured me it was standard procedure for the Bennett family. Okay, I said. Okay. That's it. That's it. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Where are you going to go? I'll figure it out. Jesus, Laura. Are you really that naive? You make $52,000 a year. You can't afford a lawyer. You can't afford to live in New York by yourself. You're going to end up crawling back to Idaho. Maybe. Or maybe not. He left the room. I heard him in the guest bedroom, slamming drawers. I put the pocket watch back in its box and slipped the deed into my purse. Then I texted Casey, "Can I stay with you for a while? I'm leaving Matt." She responded in 14 seconds. Doors unlocked. Come now. I packed 2 suitcases, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the few things that were actually mine, and I walked out of that brownstone at 1:33 a.m. on December 26th. I didn't look back. Casey's studio apartment was exactly as I remembered. Cramped, warm, chaotic, filled with books and plants and thrift store furniture that had more character than anything in Matt's pristine brownstone. She made me tea, gave me her bed, and didn't ask questions. "When you're ready to talk, I'm here," she said. "When you're ready to burn his life down, I'll bring the matches." I slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, I had 17 missed calls from Matt and 3 voicemails. I deleted them all without listening. I also had a voicemail from Gerald Hutchinson, timestamped 8:47 a.m. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Gerald Hutchinson. I received your message about the West 78th Street property. Please come to my office today at 2 p.m. if possible. This is a matter that requires immediate attention." I was there at 1:45 p.m. Gerald Hutchinson's office was everything you'd expect: mahogany and leather, walls lined with legal books, a view of the Chrysler Building. He stood when I entered, shook my hand, gestured to a chair. "Mrs. Bennett. Thank you for coming. Call me Laura." "Laura." He sat down, folded his hands on his desk. "I must confess, when you mentioned 247 West 78th Street, I was surprised. That property has been a closely guarded secret for quite some time. So it's real. The deed is real. Very real. Harrison created Bennett Properties LLC 45 years ago and purchased that building with money he'd inherited from his grandmother, money that predated the family trust and was therefore his to control independently. He managed it quietly, never told his children, Never included it in any family discussions. Why? Gerald smiled. Because Harrison Bennett, for all his flaws, understood his family perfectly. He knew they would squabble over it, fight for control, likely sell it and divide the proceeds. He didn't want that. He wanted it preserved. And he wanted it to go to someone who would appreciate it. Me. But he barely knew me. He knew enough. Gerald pulled a file from his desk drawer. Do you remember the last time you saw Harrison? About 6 months before he died. I thought back. At Patricia's birthday party. I talked to him for maybe 5 minutes. What did you talk about? He asked me about my work. I told him about a literacy program we'd just gotten funded. Inner city kids. Kindergarten through 3rd grade. We were teaching them to read. Gerald nodded. He told me about that conversation. He said, "That girl cares about something other than money. That's rare in this family." He slid the file across the desk. This is the complete documentation for Bennett Properties LLC. As of yesterday, you are the sole owner of the building and the company. The property is valued at $18.3 million. It generates approximately $1.2 million in annual rental income. All yours. I stared at the file. At the deed with my name on it now. Laura Cooper Bennett. Owner. The family doesn't know. I asked. The family has no idea. Harrison was very specific about that. He said, and I quote, "Let them discover it when they've shown their true colors. Let Laura decide what to do with that knowledge." What if I'd never opened the watch? Then Harrison's backup plan was for me to contact you 1 year after the will reading. But he suspected you'd figure it out sooner. Gerald leaned back in his chair. So, what would you like to do? What did I want to do? I thought about Vanessa throwing my bracelet in the trash. Derek mocking my salary. Patricia comparing me to Jennifer. Matt threatening me with consequences. I thought about 7 years of feeling small. And then I thought about Harrison, 93 years old and dying, making sure I had this. Making sure I had power. I want to keep it quiet, I said. For now. Gerald smiled. Very wise. We spent the next 2 hours going through paperwork. I signed documents, set up a new bank account for the LLC's income, learned about the tenants, a mix of rent-controlled and market-rate apartments, plus the restaurant on the ground floor. Gerald explained that a property management company handled day-to-day operations, so I didn't need to do anything except collect income and make major decisions. When I left his office at 4:37 p.m., I was worth $18.3 million. I walked to Central Park and sat on a bench overlooking the pond. It was cold, the sky that particular winter gray that makes New York feel like a black and white photograph. I watched people ice skate and I tried to process what had just happened. My phone rang. Matt. I answered. Where the hell are you? He demanded. You can't just disappear. We have things to discuss. I'm in Manhattan. And yes, we do. Come home. Now. The brownstone isn't my home anymore, Matt. You made that very clear. Fine. Fine, you want to do this the hard way? My lawyer will contact you. You'll sign the divorce papers, you'll get nothing, and you can go back to whatever life you had before me. Okay. That threw him. Okay. I'll sign whatever papers you want. I don't want your money, Matt. Silence. Then, what's going on? You sound different. I'm different. Laura, if this is some kind of game. It's not a game. I just don't want to fight. Send me the papers. I hung up. Then I called Casey. Can you meet me for dinner? Where? I thought about it. About all those restaurants the Bennetts loved, the ones where they had standing reservations and tables by the window. The ones where I'd always felt underdressed and out of place. Le Bernardin. Laura, that place costs like $200 a person. I know. My treat. We met at 7 p.m. Casey wore her best dress, the navy one she saved for court appearances. I wore jeans and a sweater and I didn't care. The host seated us at a table with a view of the kitchen, And I ordered champagne. Okay, Casey said when the waiter left. What happened? Did you rob a bank? I told her everything. The pocket watch, the deed, Harrison's secret, the $18.3 million. She stared at me. Then she started laughing. Then she started crying. Then she grabbed my hand across the table and said, "Holy shit. Holy shit. You're rich. I'm rich. And Matt has no idea. Nobody has any idea. What are you going to do?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I'm going to let him divorce me," I said. "I'm going to sign his papers and let him think he won. Let them all think I crawled away with nothing. And then I'm going to live my life. On my terms." We ordered the tasting menu, 7 courses, each one better than the last. We drank champagne and then wine and then dessert wine. Casey told me about the guy she was dating, a teacher from the Bronx. I told her about the literacy program, how we'd just gotten a new grant. "You're going to keep working?" she asked. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because you don't have to anymore." "I know. But I want to." I thought about those kids, learning to read, their faces lighting up when they sounded out a word for the first time. This money doesn't change what matters to me. It just means I don't have to be afraid anymore. We left Le Bernardin at 11 p.m., full and happy and slightly drunk. Casey hugged me on the sidewalk and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." I went back to her apartment and slept dreamlessly. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later, delivered by courier to Casey's address. I read through them with Gerald Hutchinson on speakerphone, sitting at Casey's tiny kitchen table. "It's exactly what we expected," Gerald said. "You waive all claims to marital property, he keeps everything, you each pay your own legal fees. And the building? The building was never marital property. You inherited it from Harrison after you and Matt were already married, and it was a direct bequest to you alone. It's not part of the divorce proceedings unless you choose to disclose it, which you are not legally required to do. So I can just sign these. You can sign them with my blessing." I signed every page. Laura Cooper Bennett, soon to be Laura Cooper again. I had the papers couriered back the same day. Matt called that night. "You signed them." I did. "That's it. You're not going to fight." "There's nothing to fight for, Matt." He was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't want it to end like this." "How did you want it to end?" "I don't know. I thought you'd put up more of a fight." "Why?" "So you could feel better about yourself. So you could tell people I was difficult." I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "You made your choice 7 years ago, Matt. You chose your family over me every single time. This is just making it official. You're going to regret this." "Maybe. But I don't think so." I hung up. The divorce was finalized in 63 days. New York State doesn't require a waiting period if both parties consent and there are no children or contested assets. On March 3rd, I received the official decree in the mail. I was single again. Free again. And I was just getting started. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side, 3 blocks from my building. It was small but beautiful, with hardwood floors and big windows that let in the morning light. I furnished it slowly, carefully, with things I actually loved. A vintage rug from Morocco. A reading chair from an estate sale. Art from local galleries. I kept my job at the Literacy Foundation. My boss Karen was confused when I turned down a raise. "Laura, we finally have the budget, but I just told her to give it to Jamal, who had 2 kids and student loans." I didn't need it. What I did need was purpose. So I started a new project. I met with the property management company for my building and asked about the rent-controlled tenants. There were 11 of them, people who'd lived there for decades, paying 1980s prices in 2024 Manhattan. The management company had been trying to get them out for years. "Keep them," I said. "Honor their leases. If any of them need repairs, fix it immediately." "But Mrs. Bennett." "It's Ms. Cooper now. And those are my terms." I also met with the restaurant owner on the ground floor, a French chef named Philippe who'd been there for 12 years. His lease was up for renewal, and the previous property manager had been pressuring him to triple his rent. "I'd like to keep you," I told him. "At your current rate. With a 10-year lease, if you want it." Philippe, a 60-year-old man who'd worked in kitchens since he was 14, cried in his office. Word got around. The building became known as the place where the landlord actually cared. Where rent was fair. Where repairs happened fast. Where people weren't just transactions. It became a home. And me. I became invisible in the best possible way. I was just another person on the Upper West Side, walking to work, buying groceries, living my life. Nobody knew I owned anything. Nobody knew I was worth millions. The Bennetts certainly didn't know. I avoided them completely for 4 months. Changed my phone number. Blocked them all on social media, declined every invitation. Matt sent a few texts in the beginning. "Hope you're doing okay. Saw your favorite coffee shop closed." Generic things that required no response, and then he stopped. I thought I was done with them forever. Then I got a wedding invitation. Vanessa was getting remarried. Her first marriage had ended 2 years ago in a spectacular scandal involving her husband and his assistant. Now she'd found someone new, a hedge fund manager named Preston, and she was having a wedding at the plaza. The invitation was addressed to Laura Cooper, sent to my parents' address in Idaho, which someone must have looked up. My mother forwarded it to me with a note. "Do you want to go to this?" No. I absolutely did not want to go. But something in me, some stubborn, reckless part, said yes. I RSVP'd for one. The wedding was in June, a Saturday afternoon, with a reception that promised to be spectacular. I bought a dress for the occasion, emerald green silk, fitted, elegant, expensive. I got my hair done. I wore the Tiffany bracelet I'd bought Vanessa, the one she'd thrown away, the one I'd rescued from the trash that night. I arrived at the plaza at 4:47 p.m. The ceremony was in the grand ballroom, 300 guests, an orchestra playing Pachelbel. I slipped into a seat in the back and watched Vanessa walk down the aisle in a Vera Wang gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. She looked beautiful. Happy. Like she'd forgotten all about the sister-in-law she'd tormented. After the ceremony, the cocktail hour was in the terrace room. I got a glass of champagne and stood near the windows, watching the park below. "Laura." I turned. "Derek. Wow. Didn't expect to see you here." He looked me up and down, and I could see him cataloguing. Nice dress, good jewelry, confident posture. I didn't look broken. "How have you been?" "Good. You?" "Great, great. Business is booming. Just closed a deal in Miami." He took a sip of his drink. "Sorry things didn't work out with Matt." "I'm not." That surprised him. "Really? Really? Well, good for you." He shifted uncomfortably. "So what are you doing now? Still writing grants or?" "Still writing grants." "That's nice. Very noble." The same thing he'd said about the pocket watch. Very noble. Very poor. Patricia found me during dinner. I was seated at a table with people I didn't know, safely away from the family tables. But Patricia came over anyway, immaculate in champagne-colored Chanel. "Laura. What a surprise." "Hello, Patricia. I didn't know you were coming." "Vanessa invited me." "Yes, well, she's very generous." Patricia's smile was sharp. "I hope there are no hard feelings about the divorce. These things happen." "No hard feelings." "Good. Matthew has moved on, you know. He's seeing someone. Very successful woman. Doctor. I'm happy for him." Patricia studied me, looking for cracks. "You seem well." "I am well." "Where are you living these days?" "Upper West Side." Her eyebrows rose. "Can you afford that on your salary?" "I have a rent-controlled apartment." The lie came easily. "Small, but it's home." "How quaint." She patted my shoulder. "Well, best of luck to you, dear." She walked away, and I realized I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no need for approval. She was just a woman who'd never understood me, and that was fine. I was finishing my dessert when Matt appeared. He looked the same. Same perfectly styled hair, same expensive suit, same Patek Philippe watch. But there was something different in his face. Uncertainty, maybe. Can we talk? I followed him to a quiet corner near the bar. You look good, he said. Thank you. I mean it. You look different. Happy. I'm happy. He nodded, swirling his scotch. I've been thinking about us a lot. About how things ended. Okay. I think maybe I made a mistake. Oh no. Matt. Hear me out. We were good together, Laura. Before everything got complicated. And I think maybe we gave up too easily. Maybe we could try again. I stared at him. You're dating a doctor. That's not serious. We've only been seeing each other for 2 months. And you want to get back together with me. I miss you. He stepped closer. I miss us. Don't you? Did I? I searched my feelings and found nothing. No longing, no what if, no second guessing. Just a vast, peaceful emptiness where he used to be. No, I said. I don't. Laura. I'm not the same person I was when we were married. And honestly, Matt, neither are you. Or maybe you are, and that's the problem. What's that supposed to mean? It means you chose your family over me every single day for 7 years. You let them belittle me, mock me, treat me like I was worthless. And when I finally left, you threatened me. You told me I'd have nothing. I was angry. You were honest. And I'm grateful for that, actually, because it showed me who you really are. I set down my champagne glass. I don't miss you. I don't miss your family. I don't miss feeling small. His face hardened. You'll regret this. You're making, what, $50,000 a year? You think you're going to find someone better than me? Someone willing to overlook where you came from? And there it was. The real Matt, the one who'd always been there underneath the charm. I don't need someone better than you, I said. I just need someone who sees my worth. And if I never find that, I'm still better off alone than I was with you. I walked away. I left the plaza at 9:23 p.m. and walked through Central Park in my emerald dress and heels. The air was warm, the city glowing, and I felt lighter than I had in years. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to tell them about the building, about the money, about Harrison's gift. They would never understand it anyway. What I needed was to live well. And I was. 6 months later, I got a call from Gerald Hutchinson. Laura, I have news. The restaurant in your building, Philippe's Place, has been named one of the best new French restaurants in New York by the Times. Your property value just increased by approximately $2.3 million. I was sitting in my apartment, grading grant applications, wearing sweatpants and drinking tea. That's wonderful. There's more. I've had 3 separate inquiries from investors asking if you'd be willing to sell. One offer is for $24 million. $24 million. I'm not interested in selling, I said. Are you certain? That's a substantial. I'm certain. Because Harrison hadn't left me a building. He'd left me a legacy. A place where people were treated with dignity, where rent was fair, where a chef could make beautiful food without being crushed by greed. He'd left me proof that there was a different way to have power. I kept working at the Literacy Foundation. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching financial literacy classes. I traveled to Italy, to Japan, to Peru, staying in small hotels and eating street food and seeing the world without needing to prove anything to anyone. I dated occasionally. A teacher, a librarian, a carpenter who made beautiful furniture with his hands. Nothing serious, nothing rushed. I was learning who I was outside of being somebody's wife. And then, 1 year and 3 months after the wedding at the plaza, I ran into Vanessa. I was leaving Philippe's restaurant after a monthly check-in meeting. Vanessa was walking down 78th Street with shopping bags from boutiques I recognized. She stopped when she saw me. Laura. Hi, Vanessa. What are you doing in this neighborhood? I live here. Oh, I thought you were in a rent-controlled place. I moved. She looked at my clothes, jeans, a nice sweater, nothing flashy, and I could see her doing the math. Upper West Side rent plus grant writer salary equals, impossible. Did you remarry? No. Then how can you afford? She stopped herself. Sorry. That's rude. It's okay. I can afford it. We stood there in awkward silence. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. About Christmas. About the bracelet. Preston's been working with a therapist, and we've been talking about accountability, and I was awful to you. For years. And I'm sorry. I believed her. Or at least, I believed she believed herself. Thank you for saying that. Are you happy? She asked. Very. Good. You deserve that. She shifted her shopping bags. We should get coffee sometime. Maybe. We both knew we wouldn't. She walked away, and I watched her go. Then I turned and looked up at my building, at the red brick and the fire escapes and the window boxes full of flowers that Mrs. Chen on the 4th floor tended religiously. My building. My home. My choice. And I realized, this was what Harrison had wanted. Not revenge. Not vindication. Just freedom. 2 years after the divorce, I created the Harrison Bennett Foundation for Literacy. I seeded it with $2 million from the building's income and recruited a board of educators, librarians, and community organizers. We funded literacy programs in underserved communities across New York City. At the launch event, held at the Public Library on 42nd Street, I gave a speech about second chances and the power of education and how one person's kindness can change a life. Matt was there. I didn't know he was coming. He just appeared in the back of the room, and when I saw him, I faltered for only a second before continuing. After the speech, he approached me. That was beautiful, he said. Thank you. You started a foundation. I did. With what money? I smiled. I'm very good at writing grants. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw the moment he realized he didn't know me at all. Maybe he never had. You're different, he said. I'm the same person I always was. You just never bothered to see it. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. Okay. Are you happy? Very. Good. You deserve that. He turned to leave, then stopped. That pocket watch Uncle Harrison left you. Did you ever find out what it was worth? I thought about the building, the foundation, the life I'd built. More than you could imagine, I said. He walked away, and I never saw him again. So that's my story. The Bennetts thought they'd left me with nothing, a cheap pocket watch, a divorce settlement that gave me zero, a future serving coffee and clipping coupons. They mocked me, belittled me, threw my gifts in the trash. They didn't know that Harrison had seen something in me they never could. They didn't know he'd left me the key to an empire they'd never even known existed. They didn't know that while they were fighting over their millions, I was quietly sitting on a fortune that made their inheritances look small. But here's the thing, I didn't tell them. Not then, not now, not ever. Because the real gift wasn't the money. It was the freedom to live without needing their approval. The freedom to define my own worth. The greater the humiliation, the greater the preparation, someone once said. I was humiliated at that Christmas party, broken by that divorce, lost in the aftermath. But all of it prepared me for this, a life lived on my own terms, with my own values, answering to no one but myself. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever been in a situation where people counted you out, only for you to prove them wrong? Drop a comment below with your city and state and tell me your story. Because we all have them. Moments when we were dismissed, discarded, written off. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own worth and the people who failed to see it, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because I share stories like this every week. Stories of ordinary people who discovered their extraordinary strength. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself after they're done. The pocket watch is still on my dresser. I wind it every Sunday, And it keeps perfect time. Because Harrison was right. Time reveals all truths. And the truth is, I won.